couple of months ago, I went back to my hometown to visit my family and friends over Easter. I usually stay at my father's house, and I did so this time as well, even though he and his girlfriend were on vacation. The house is very big with a big garden and fence around it, but the gate is always open and I don't have a key to lock it. And even if I did, I would never have thought of locking it because my dad lives in a very fancy part of the town in wealthy country where all of the embassies are. I've literally never had anything unusual happen to me in this neighborhood. So, I'm alone in this huge house, and I've never felt unsafe in any way. The guest room is located on the ground floor and has a window that points right out to the driveway and one into the garden. Neither window has curtains, which did make me feel uncomfortable at times, as I have a habit of staying up late with the light on, so I'd be easily visible from outside. So, one night I'm on my way home from a night out with my friend, and as my dad's house is so close to the city center, I decided to walk home. The first 3/4 of the way goes along this main street with many streetlights and tram stops every few hundred meters. It is at one of these tram stops that I notice a guy sitting on his bicycle. I don't know why it took him to note, but something must have just felt wrong about him. Even then, cause it kind of stuck in my mind. Thinking back, it might have been the way that he looked at me. Anyway, I continue up the street and glance back once, but this guy is still sitting there on his bike, so I forget about him. Around the next tram stop, I get this weird feeling on the back of my neck, and I can hear someone about 3 meters behind me on a bicycle. Without looking back, I go to the very edge of the sidewalk and let them pass, but they never do. I started to get uncomfortable and walking slower to make them pass me. I mean, I'm walking and they're on a bike, so why would they go slowly as well and not just pass me? I finally took a look at them, and wouldn't you know, it's the same guy from earlier. I faced up ahead again and think fast. At the next crossing, I would have to go to the less lit side of the street with absolutely no people around. I decided to go to the nearby tram station instead and pretend that I'm waiting, even though it must seem pretty obvious that I wasn't, since this guy must have seen me pass 2 tram stations and the line would have gone back the way I came from. So I stand there and look back at him, and he stops his bike and just stares at me for a couple of seconds, then rides off and disappears behind a waiting booth. I never see him come out. After a few minutes, I decided that I've waited long enough and go into the dimly lit side of the street, leading home all the way while looking back every 5 seconds. I finally arrive home, and this time I make sure to close the gate outside, but I don't have a key for it, so I can't lock it. I go into my room a little uneasy, and this time I take off my shirt and bra in the corner outside of view of either window. I want to put my pajamas on, but it's on the bed, so I have to go over there topless thinking, well, it's just a second, and besides, there's no way this guy followed me here. I move to the bed, and bam, a camera flashes, clearly coming from the garden. I instantly jump to the light switch, turn it off, and drop to the floor. I lie there for a few seconds in shock. Then my eyes started watering, and I started sobbing like a baby. I think about everything for the next few minutes, trying to convince myself that I just imagined it, but I am 100% sure of what I saw. The flash even came from the exact spot between the 2 trees, where I always thought that would be the perfect spot for a stalker to hide out. So, I called the police, and while waiting for them to show up, I go to the kitchen and grab a knife, all the while trying to stay away from the windows. Thankfully, 2 officers showed up within minutes, one going directly into the garden, the other coming inside and asking me about this incident, and so on. Of course, they don't find anything since my reaction to the flash was obvious, and the creeper must have ran off. but I felt a lot better after they told me that they would be on the lookout around the neighborhood. And usually this kind of person doesn't try to break in or do anything violent. Funnily enough, after they left, I instantly fell into a deep, calm sleep. I was unreasonably paranoid, and I was very jumpy for the next 2 days though, and I took some bed sheets and clamped them between the window and the wall. I never told my dad or his girlfriend about this, because she is a district attorney and always is super paranoid about her privacy. I'm not even allowed to take photos around the house, in case a criminal could trace them back somehow. So I didn't want to worry her about some lame creep who has nothing to do with her. Hi, I am new to this subreddit, but I have quite a few stories to share, be it my own experiences or my parents' experience. Needless to say, here's one of the more interesting ones of the lot. I was 14 at the time, so keep that in mind for the context. I was sat on my bed in my house on my own as usual. My parents were going to be late for the night, and we lived in a very peaceful area, so even the strictest parents would have left their son to watch over the house. As I was on my laptop watching videos, I heard a knock from the door. Mind you, this is 2 a.m., and I was already paranoid from my previous experiences. There was no way I was going to answer that door, but it piqued my curiosity. Since my house has 2 floors, there was a window right above the door where I could pull back one of the blinds and just easily see who was at the door. My porch light was on, so light wasn't too much of a problem. Even though my paranoia peaked, I had to look to see who was outside. When I looked, there was nobody. At all. I was about to place the blinds back down when I saw someone under the light at the end of the cul-de-sac and almost jumped backwards. This person was in a conveniently suspicious-looking hoodie and tracksuit with no light showing on their facial features. His arms were to his side, and he was just staring directly at me. It was weird. He didn't move at all. He just stood there, under the light. After what seemed to be like 10 minutes or so, he just turned around and walked into the darkness of the main street. I sighed and went back to watching my videos. Perhaps he was just some weird guy who came from the train station near my house. I had no idea, but any justification was better than the alternative. Eventually, around 3 a.m., I fell asleep. I woke up about 4:40 to the sound of my dog silently growling behind me. I thought it was because he wanted to go out into the garden, so I turned around and froze in terror. The person from the street. He was in my doorway. No light hit him in the front, and so even then I could only see the outline of his face. We had another moment where I just stared into this void which was his face, only for him to break the silence with advice which seemed silly at first glance, but I have forever taken it to heart since. Lock your back door. As he did the last time, he turned around towards the stairs and, with me still frozen in place, left my house through the back door. When I wasn't frozen stiff of fear, I sprinted downstairs and got to the back door. He was in the garden. I could only see his outline. He stayed still for a moment, only to sprint off into the woods. I never found out who he was. I didn't care to tell my parents what happened, and yet to this day, they still ask me why I insist on keeping the back door locked. Honestly, I believe he was a warning. If he had been an unstable psychopath, I wouldn't be here right now. Considering some experiences I have had since, I say locking the doors, even in the peaceful areas, is great advice. So, 2 a.m. security checker. Thank you. Even if your intentions were bad, I still learned something from you. But even so, let's not meet. So, this actually happened to me today, and I felt like I needed to share it, just so that I could share to be cautious for others. I live in a small city not too far from Edmonton, and recently, there has been a series of armed robberies happening around the area. It's made me very wary of walking alone at night, so I have found myself at home at nights more than often. It's not the worst, but I dislike having that feeling of unease. But I managed to make do. So, today, my dad and his girlfriend were invited to some party, meaning I was left to watch the whole house myself. I pretty much had the evening planned out, watching some episodes from my favorite soap opera, then switching over to some classic horror films. So I said bye to them as they left, and quickly loaded up the TV. It was not long after that I started up the horror movie. I heard this weird knock at the door. It wasn't a regular knocking. If my TV had been up any louder, I probably wouldn't have been able to hear it. Thinking it was nothing at first, I went over to the door without pausing the movie just to confirm. But to my surprise, there was someone at the door. I opened the door and there stood a slim man, looked to be in his mid-30s, and that's all I can pretty much say. I'm not the best when it comes to describing people, and I didn't really go out of my way to analyze him at the moment. I couldn't even tell you if his jacket was gray or black. The man said he represented a security company that was going around the area to offer his company's services. He asked if the owner of the house was home, to which I told him no, and that they wouldn't be home till late. He then began giving me a quick demonstration about his company, that it was the only one that was locally funded, that it's already being used by several homes on my street, and that it's smart device friendly. He even showed me a laminated piece of paper that displayed all the different devices that I could work with the security system. I told him that we weren't interested in having a security system at this time. He proceeded to ask me if my family leaves the house on long trips, which would be a great reason to get a security system. Looking back now, this was a huge red flag, but I answered honestly and told him that we almost never have the house empty and that we never really went on trips. I also added that he could speak to my dad tomorrow when he is coming back. He told me that his team would be leaving for another city tomorrow, thanked me for my time, then left. I went back to my movie and pretty much forgot about the visitor. Movie finishes, and I decided to check Facebook to glance at the buys and sells. Near the top of my feed is a shared post that caught my eye immediately. What I read next made me completely freeze up. It was from a woman who had also talked to a representative of the exact same security company I had been advertised to. This guy knocked on her door softly too, which immediately caught my attention. She noticed how this guy never gave his name or a business card, something I didn't even realize that happened until I thought back. Overall, she was very suspicious of the guy, so she asked him to wait outside as she got her pen and paper to write down his phone number. When she returned, he was gone. The next door neighbor told her that she saw this man running down the road and into an alley. But the biggest fact that this woman dropped, she contacted the security company, and it actually does exist, and they told her that they didn't send anyone out of the city to go door to door. The shared post is blowing up, and it seems that it occurred to a lot more people than just me. Some people even showed a video of the security cameras of these employees. There's definitely more than one person pretending to work for this company, one even being a woman, and a lot of strange activity has been reported. One person going into the backyard without permission, another person standing in front of that person's house like they were scoping it out. Knowing all of this now, it makes the entire encounter with that guy at my door more terrifying. Was he trying to scope my house too? Or would he have tried to do something if I didn't answer? I also wonder Was he hesitant on trying anything because I did pause my movie? For all he knew, I could have had a friend over. Luckily, nothing suspicious happened from the rest of the night, but I will be extremely cautious from now on. If there's one thing that I would advise, be suspicious of anyone you don't know that comes to your house. Just because someone says they work for a company doesn't make it true. You don't know who they are or what they might actually do to you. Thanks for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did and you would like to see more, make sure to check out the other videos that I have on my channel. Make sure to like, comment, and if you're new to this channel, make sure to subscribe. Make sure to check out the links to the description as well, like Twitter, Instagram, everything like that is in there, including my Gmail. Make sure to check out the channel members as well, and the merchandise on the merch shop. There's a lot of cool stuff on there. I've been adding more and more to it. But with that being said, stay safe, stay scary, and I'll see you in the next one.